my goodness. Good afternoon. Welcome to this session of the Black Family Home Educators and Scholars second annual teach-in. This session, you're going to meet two authors from our upcoming book. The book is titled Homeschooling Black Children in the U.S., Theory, Practice, and Popular Culture. Today we have Dr. Brandi Crawford and Cheryl Carter, who are both contributors to this magnificent book, 14 authors in total. And today we're going to take a peek inside their chapters and see what's happening and talk about the process of writing the book and anything else that might be on your mind, I guess. And with that, let's start. Cheryl, do you want to give a brief introduction of who you are, and then Brandi?
Oh, okay. First and foremost, I'm a homeschooling mom of 5. My 3 oldest have graduated. And so my oldest is actually 30. So I have a 30, 26-year-old and a 20, soon to be 23-year-old. And then we have 11-year-old twins. So yeah, they were our little surprise package. But I've been homeschool. I consider myself a homeschool leader because I work a lot with grassroots. I don't necessarily have a title, although I've done a lot of work in terms of being in leadership in homeschool groups and such. I don't really consider myself a leader, but anyway. So we homeschool my kids. My 3 oldest have all went to competitive colleges. They've graduated and did quite well. My daughter was actually on track to be the valedictorian of her college. My son was a Gates Millennium Scholar, and my other daughter was a finalist. So they've also did very well academically in college. We've used I'm probably going to talk too much. I guess that's it. I'm sorry, I'm going to talk too much.
Cheryl is a veteran homeschooler.
Yeah.
And a leader.
Good evening, everyone. I am Brandi Crawford. I am very much the opposite end of the spectrum. This was my first year homeschooling. I also have twins who are 9 years old. And they're very, very different learners. One is on the autism spectrum, and she has some learning challenges. The other is at the opposite end. There's nothing you can throw at him that he cannot do. And so it was, we live in rural Appalachia in North Carolina. And so I chose to homeschool because I didn't think the school was a really safe environment for my children.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just putting the titles of your chapters here. And so why don't we dive into these chapters? So Cheryl, your chapter title is A Prayerful Act of Protest. Oh wait, I think I forgot the beginning part of your chapter.
Yep, that's right.
Homeschooling. Right. I can't correct it. It says it should be homeschooling. A prayerful act of protest. So what will readers gain from reading your chapter? What do you hope they gain?
When I sat down to write the chapter, and actually I rewrote the chapter, I probably made it more difficult on myself because I wanted to sort of just get everything that I had did. Like I said, my son is 30. I started homeschooling him when he was, legally in New York State. We didn't have to file till he was 6, but I started homeschooling before that. I tried to get all the information. So you're going to find my chapter, I tried to be very practical. While I tried to weave in some theory, I tried to be very, very practical and say, this is what we did, and give practical solutions, because one of the things that I found, and tell me if I talk too much, but one of the things I found with Black homeschoolers, particularly the new Black homeschoolers that I would work with, is that they always brought the school into their home and they would do things the way the school would do it. And that was one of the first things I learned. Like I didn't want to bring the blackboard and all those. It's interesting. So now we're at the point that we would say, I was decolonializing homeschooling long before it was popular to do it. So I think you'll see, I think what readers will get will be a practical, and just who I am. There is a strong spiritual component with it, not a component to convert anybody, but I do believe that our survival as a people, it goes, when you look at every doggone thing we have to deal with, everything. I mean, and sometimes it can almost be depressing. We are only here because there is a power greater than ourselves. And no matter what you believe, on the spiritual spectrum, you have to acknowledge that there is a power greater than us that has us here. So that's what people will get in my chapter. A lot of practical things that we did with homeschooling, just different approaches that we did, and even me speaking a little bit about when I was working from home and how that evolved. So I hope people look at it and say, wow, that they are encouraged and they get a lot of practical. I was thinking about a new homeschooler, that they would get practical information.
So in your title, a prayerful act of protest, what's the protest part?
Because one of the things, and I'm the reason why I mentioned that my son is 30, people look at me and they don't realize that I'm as old as I am. And I'm, by the way, not ashamed to say that I am 58 years old. I'm soon be 59. And so over the year, women will say, I won't say that, but I will say that. The only thing right now, I do have a little bit of gray for some of you who are wondering, but that's why I wear the headband. But the prayerful protest was that in many ways, when we started homeschooling, my family, again, we were in New York, Long Island in particular. We were not supported, quite frankly, by the Black community. Now, interestingly, we started a group for Black homeschoolers, but we didn't get people coming to us saying, wow, it's a good thing. What they said to us was, oh, well, you could change the public school. If you did this, you could be president of the PTA. You could do those kind of things. And so the protest was after my husband and I both really prayed about it. And sometimes people say I pray about it, but it's kind of, sometimes, I don't mean to be all theological, but sometimes saying I'm praying about something is an excuse for not doing anything. In our cases, we prayed about, we said we were not willing to lay our kids' lives on the altar of being of trusting or believing in a school system that has failed us over the years. And anybody who's been successful, and don't get me wrong, people might look at me and say I was fairly successful. You're still looking at me through the lens of where I am now, but we don't see what I could have been. We don't see everything that I could have been because we're looking at it through the limited means. So to me, you can't pray about something and not move or do something. And so that's what, and so for us, honestly, we did not have the support of either one of our families. To be frank with you, our church has started a school. Even the church we were going to has started a school, and they were looking for people to come in. They would say, oh, but you could come and support the school. So for us, it really was a protest. We really had to know, without a shadow of doubt, that we were not just doing this on our own, that there was something higher. And it wasn't just for our kids. It wasn't just for our kids. I think most people homeschooling, they think, oh, you're just doing this for me and mine. No, it's for so many other people. Even if they never homeschool, people have to know, particularly our people, that there's another choice. There's something else different. The teacher does not tell you who your child is going to be. Right. Never. Never. Even if you got the greatest teacher, they don't tell you who your kid's going to be. So anyway, that was what
you were protesting on all fronts. It sounds like family, school system, even the church, the community. Wow.
Yeah. In many ways. In many ways. I mean, and even like I said, you'll see me I wrestled through, even financially. It was honestly, I had a master's, to tell my mother, who had worked all these years, that, and I'm the only college graduate out of 7 kids, to tell her that I was going to stay home with my kids, that it actually caused somewhat of a rift before. She could not understand it. She couldn't understand it. For her, working meant affirmation. She wouldn't say it that way, but it would have been, that's, if she could have said it in a different way, that's what she would have said.
Wow. And Brandi, your chapter, Creating a Homeschool as Home Place, Vision and Practice, while you unfold for us very beautifully how your homeschooling came to be and your approach to setting it up. But your chapter is situated in the theory section because of this idea of home place being the part of the framing of how you went about this. So you want to talk about that part of your chapter and anything, and the same question, what do you hope readers will get from your chapter?
So one of the things I really tried to do in writing my chapter is be very honest about my experience as a single mom who's also a full-time professor and trying to homeschool 2 very different learners. And I did do all this background about how I came to the decision of homeschooling because it was not an easy or a first decision for me. So a little bit of background: I'm a professor in educational leadership and ed research, and so my whole life, I've been a public school advocate. I was a public school teacher. But Bell Hooks' notion of home place is creating a space that nurtures your spirit, your soul, your inner being in a world that is against you. And watching my children in the district, in the school they were in, where they were, maybe 2 of 5 Black children in the entire school, watching my son, who is, a sponge, come home and say things like, "Mom, am I a bad kid?" because of his interactions with a particular teacher. Going through the IEP process with my daughter, I was like, all of these things feel like they're trying to tear my children down. So how can I create a space that just loves on them and lets them know that who they are is okay, is more than okay. Who they are is perfect and beautiful. And I began to think, because I teach in education about all the things I teach people that I want them to go out and do in schools, and said, okay, how can I do these things for my own children? Because these things I'm teaching about, I'm not seeing at all. And so that's kind of how my chapter evolves. I do talk about particular interactions with teachers and things that were kind of the breaking point of me pulling away. And then I try, as I said, be very transparent. We had some good days and some great units and some things that were amazing. And then there's the reality that I am a single mom. The first half of the year, my mother was with us. The second half of the year, my sister had a baby and my mom moved away. And so that really made things even harder. And so just to be real about also the tensions I feel between being torn between my job and giving my children my absolute best. Guilt I feel on days when I'm like, today was not a great day. And then there's also this tension that you spoke about, Cheryl, between people trying to bring the school into their home. I tried to do that. I tried to make home look like what I had been indoctrinated to think of as school for years. Because like I said, I went to school, I was a teacher, so I had this idea of what school is supposed to look like. And while we teach and say things like blow up the system and do it a different way, I was literally trying to mimic that in my home and said, well, wait a minute, that was the whole point of doing this, was not to do that. And so just being honest about, you know, some successes and failures with this attempt to homeschool.
I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about this book, you know, is that there's 14 authors. I'm one of them, but I'm not, as you all know, I'm not a homeschooler. I'm a homeschool researcher. So my part is not really that important. It's the 13 other chapters from home educators who are also researchers, but they open their hearts. They make themselves vulnerable and share their stories, including both of you. And I think, you know, homeschooling is not pretty. That's one of the takeaways, right? It's pretty. I mean, the long-term outcome is wonderful, but the day-to-day, it's not always perfect. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. The kids will thrive nonetheless, because the environment that you're creating is loving, it's tailored to them, and it's for them, right? It's, you know, whereas school isn't necessarily for our children. I think it's really interesting, and I don't know why I haven't done this yet, but to think about how many educators, former educators or current educators, are doing homeschooling for their own is powerful.
Oh, yeah.
There are a number of people that are members of this organization who have that, and we really need to talk about that, particularly when you put it in the framing of our history. When you look at how, you know, James Anderson wrote this book about education of Blacks in the South. And by the time you're done reading James Anderson, you realize that there may never have been public schools in the South had it not been for Black people.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We were the ones pushing for public schools. And they were denying us and denying us and denying us. And, you know, we were opening our own within our churches, and they realized, wow, we need to do something, right? So that's the story they don't tell you. That's, you know, those are the things that we've been taught to unlearn or to forget our history in a lot of sense. So, thinking about the writing process itself, it's interesting to have both of you here because Brandi, you are a researcher, scholar, and you write for a living. Cheryl, you've written a lot of books before on your own, and before you're already an author. But what was this writing process like for you, writing for this particular book? What did the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, the ugly?
Now, are you asking me first?
Both of you. Anyway.
Well, you know, even though I've written a lot, and I actually, that's one thing I didn't mention, and I actually even serve as a writing coach, so I help other people write. The difficulty in this book was, in all frankness, is that typically I write more for popular culture. Is that like, so I've written parenting books, curriculum books, and so I've never written research, in all honesty. And I was actually, to be frank with you, intimidated. Even when we had the writing sessions, I would leave and say, why did Dr. Cheryl ask me to do this? Because everybody seems so intelligent and so educated. And I honestly felt like this. So when I wrote, and I got an idea, and I wrote the first, I don't know if you remember, Dr. Cheryl, I wrote the first chapter, and I was like, I felt okay. I will say it felt good. And you just told me to make a few little changes. I don't know if you remember. I wrote the whole thing over. I did exactly what I told my kids not to do, which is, and I stressed myself writing the whole thing over. And I remember my husband said, I don't see anything wrong. Why can't you just make these changes? And I said, but it's not good enough. And this may be the only thing that I write on homeschooling. Because I have not, interesting enough, with all my writing, I have not written on homeschooling, interestingly. Okay.
But did you, when you were in we had these virtual writing retreats pretty much every month from the fall of 2020, with the hope of getting the book done by January, which didn't happen, but we came close. You know, but did you feel like everybody in those virtual writing retreats, did you feel you felt part of the community though, right?
Oh, no, I felt
Yeah.
it was, I felt part of the community, and it was always inspiring. I
Yeah.
guess when I left, I wanted to, and I wonder if our kids feel this way. I wanted to come up to everybody's expectations. Everybody was really encouraging, but I felt like I wanted to, everyone was like, sure, this is going to be really good. So they would ask me questions. So when I said, oh yeah, my father was a sharecropper, and they would say, well, that's a good story, you should include that. But I was almost a little bit overwhelmed with everything. So it was like cutting it down. So, because I think it was finally when you gave me that deadline, what you don't know is I made my family crazy for the weekend before. And I just said, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to finish it just that weekend because I wanted to make the deadline. But it was a good process. But like I said, I have not written research, and I definitely don't consider, even now my MFA is in creative writing, so I come more of the creative process.
Yeah.
I've never really had to stick into structure like that. I know that sounds really bad, but
No, I get it. I
yeah,
definitely get it.
yeah.
George wants to know where we can find your books. So can you type that into the chat? I went to look.
Sure.
Very simple.
All right, so I have a few let's see if I could if I could get the chat right. So I have you could probably, the easiest probably goes on Amazon. So you could look for my name, Cheryl R. Carter, or one of my pen names is Collegiate Learning. One of my other pen names is Meaningful Moments, and I also write under a male name because some of the things people will not accept it because I'm a woman writing it.
Oh,
So, but I'll put that in too.
I
So some of
found.
the things I write on race, I write under a male name, honestly.
Oh, yeah, I want to see that. I didn't know that. But Cheryl's like an onion. You just have to keep interacting with her. And I found you on Amazon. I put that in.
Okay.
Okay.
So
And
those are my three. Yeah, those are my three things.
okay. But let me get to Brandi. Brandi, you write about research, so you know that one of the things that Dr. Khadijah and I talk about a lot, particularly in the beginning, is what is research? Who gets to decide? And there's many frameworks today that tell us that our experiences, our lived experiences, that's knowledge. That's something worthy of being documented and researched and discussed. And that's what this book is really about. So go ahead, tell us about your experience with this book, writing this book, the good, the bad, the ugly.
So I missed the virtual
That's right.
writing session. So when I was doing it, I was off in the woods by myself. And while I do write a lot, I'm usually not writing about myself. So it was very interesting to kind of turn and really analyze my own praxis, try not to be hypercritical, which I think is just who I am in general. My mom was like, well, wait a minute, some good things happen too. You gotta have some balance there. And then the nature of the researcher in me, I interviewed my kids at one point in time. I was like, look, let me ask you, what do you like about this homeschooling thing? Do you want to go back to regular school? And I was really floored by some of the things that they said, which at the time was also quite encouraging because, and not that I'm a person who's easily discouraged, but I keep track more so of the things that are not going the way I want them to go. And then to hear them say, oh, well, mommy, I really love this thing, or I love, there was some journaling that we would do and things that I didn't think were super impressionable to them, but then getting to hear them articulate it in their own words. Or I like when we do the math warm up and we do the Dougie, or, you know, those types of things were just, I don't know, it was really affirming, and not from some outside source, but for the people I'm doing this for. And so there was that piece, and then the research piece, because I am new to homeschooling, and so I'm also new to like the homeschooling literature. So as I was reading about homeschooling, so that I could ground my chapter in the research and see where I fit, I found out that, hey, I'm not unique in this. Black parents throughout the literature are pulling their kids out for the same reasons that I am. And then going back to think about like this history, yes, Black folks started public schools, but we have also been creating alternative institutions alongside them since they started, and have not been serving our children well. So I feel like this shift towards more folks homeschooling is a part of this longer trajectory of how Black folks make education work. And if you look at Shuja, who talks about too much schooling, too little education, we find ways to educate our kids despite the system of schooling. And so I think it was interesting to see myself as a part of this long trajectory of folks who have had to figure out how to make it work.
That's really important. I'm going to put Shuja's work in here in case anyone's not familiar. And what's surprising, to not so surprising, but the date, when you look at that came out, I'm pretty sure more than a decade, maybe 2 decades ago. We have some prolific people, African-American thinkers, who told us we were on the wrong path. Right. And I just hope that, you know, since this pandemic, homeschooling among Black families has increased 5-fold. As we continue to increase, because I'm thinking it's going to continue to increase, and it's doubled in America overall, boards of education are going to have to take notice. Last week, I think it was last week, yes, it was last week, I was asked to testify for the state DC Board of Ed, because they wanted me to explain my research and how it might influence they were going to look at their homeschooling policy, because homeschooling has doubled in DC in that district. And they asked me and some other folks, some home educators, Monica Utsi and you know, other folks from the DC area. And I at first I got real excited. I thought it was a DC Board of Ed for the local district. You know, like that's who I want to call me. To ask, how do we partner with Black parents? How can we take this research and reconstruct what we do at schools? I think it's coming. If we keep having these surges in homeschooling overall, the boards of ed the local districts are going to have to take notice. But they were getting ready to rethink their homeschool policy. And, you know, because I've written a lot, and it happened to be that the rise of Black homeschooling, that article, that one really hit high. Even my brother in Connecticut saw it. So they saw that and they asked me, and my whole purpose in testifying was, listen, homeschooling, just like Brandi, you call it a home place, it has been a place of refuge for Black children. So please don't make it harder. You know, single people are able to do this. Working mothers are able to do this, and it needs to stay that way, so that, because until the schools can fix, and I listed all the stuff when I look at my research, what's powerful is y'all's stories provide a human component to what the statistics tell us. So now by listening and publishing these stories, we can hear what it feels like to be a mother whose child has been labeled a troublemaker, discipline, disproportionality, school to prison pipeline. There's been decades of research that has talked about Black parents being marginalized, even middle-class Black parents not being able to go into the school and advocate for their children. And when you listen to the stories, again, you hear that. You hear the human side. What does it feel like to be the mother or the father on the receiving end of this? To have a child come home from school and they're miserable, and for no reason. I mean, we're talking elementary school, little kids. They should be coming home bursting with excitement about what they learned. So I think that, to me, that's why these stories are so important. Any questions from the audience? Anything that you want to ask us? Oh, we've got Phyllis singing your praises, Cheryl.
Oh, thank you, Phil.
Cheryl also teaches writing.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I teach on OutSchool. Yes, and OutSchool. I do teach on OutSchool, and actually I'm formulating a new class on OutSchool that I was doing on my own called A Safe Space to Write, and it's for Black youth. I started doing it on my own as a volunteer, and I turned it into a class.
Nice.
For Black writers, kids who are writers, and I really want them to graduate from the class. They have to write a book, and they have to get the book published.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How are you defining youth? What ages? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, on OutSchool, I do teach the young. I have had some young kids as young as 10 get published, but A Safe Space to Write, because we deal with some serious stuff around race and stuff, you have to be at least 13. So I take 13 to 17. But most of the kids who've gone through my program, actually all the kids who going through my program, in order to graduate from my class, you don't have to do a paper, you have to publish a book. And some of the kids, if you're thinking self-publishing, some of them do self-publishing, but a lot of kids I want to do traditional publishing because they've kind of, don't get me started on that, they kind of did a whole big thing in the literature that they don't have Black voices. So, but anyway, but yeah, so I do it OutSchool, and I also do it on my private website, Safe Space to Write.
I love that.
So,
anyone with questions, comments? We don't know the publication date, but it will be announced as soon as we know on the BFHES Facebook group. We'll as soon as we know it's coming out, we'll let you know. Okay, if there's no more questions, we'll close up shop. Oh, Ari is checking. safespacetowrite.com.
No. Learn for college. I got it. That's a good thing. That's one of my to-do lists. I need to go and put it. But right now, if you go to Learn for College and just email me there, I usually do it. I actually do it every year. It's, in all honesty, I've not advertised it out because I've always had people, pretty much African-American homeschool moms and stuff. They know me and they'll just email me, but I'm opening it up. This is the first year I'm actually opening it up. The other kids can come in. They do have to be Black. They have to be Black. Or kids of color, because we discuss real things, and even the way your kids' writing gets criticized sometimes. And I do criticize it, but I'm going to criticize it with a way to show you how to make it better, so you get published.
Are you on the marketplace, Cheryl?
No, I'm not. I'm struggling with organization, although yes, if you look, I've written books on organization. I just got 3 weeks ago, I have somebody I will be next year who became my administrative assistant because I have so much stuff, because I'm still homeschooling the boys.
Okay.
I teach at college, I'm on OutSchool, and I teach in my private classes. And I'm also writing and blogging. And so, yeah, I just missed the deadline. Okay. So, but next year, but my assistant already yelled at me about that before she was telling me to come on. So.
Oh man, okay.
Yeah.
learning, is it the number 4 or?
Yep, yep, the number 4. So it's learnforcollege.com. And you'll see my summer classes because we have an academic camp up that's actually doing really well, that we had the kids, they're learning about Black heroes. That camp goes from 8 to 11. And all the kids who are teaching in that, by the way, I'm not teaching it. All the kids who are teaching for me, they're all my former students. So I have one young lady who's going to Johns Hopkins. She was my former student. She's going for creative writing. She's teaching the writing for me. I have another young lady who's teaching Black heroes. I write the curriculum and I give it to them. And I have another young man. So if your kids that never had a Black male teacher, he's great. Darryl Andrews, he graduated from Ringling. He was one of my, and you would love him. He was dyslexic and he was told he could not pass the SAT. He graduated from college and he's my, he teaches the kids to draw and he's doing the science. So, and it's live. So it's, you know, it's still not too late if you want to get in, because we do it, it's week to week, and we're reading Brown Girl Dreaming. So, yeah. So, but yeah, and that's only for Black and brown kids. My boys are in it. And so it was something to do because they needed, I had a fun, interesting moment. My daughter graduated with an MFA and she was speaking, and she didn't mean it. It kind of hurt my feelings. She didn't mean it to hurt my feelings, but when she was speaking and she was reading her material, she said who her advisor was, and she said, "This is the first time I had a Black teacher," and it hurt me because that's what I've been doing all along. Like, I help kids to get a Black teacher, but she doesn't consider her mom her teacher, and so I didn't want this to happen. And so that's sort of why I created this program, like, so my boys could have my 11-year-olds could have Black teachers, so they could say they had, besides their mother, they had other Black teachers. So that's why I put the camp together, the academic enrichment camp. So if you go in there, you can still see that's on the website if anybody wants to join. So,
Brandi, what were you gonna say?
I was asking about the camp. I'm trying to enroll my twins. Right.
Oh yeah, they can come. They can definitely come. And what you do is you email me. Well, when you go to register, email me. Let me just say, because my administrator is getting it, but we could work out. You know, you have twins, so I understand. I have twins. I know double paying double, so we could work it out.
Okay,
Because only a mom who has twins would understand. People would be like, "Oh, it's only $100," but you're thinking already, and then I got to get 2 books and all that. So yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'll make sure you get Cheryl's email.
Yeah. Well, she could go right on Learn, but no, she could go right on Learn for College. There's a web, it's right there if anybody wants to register, because I still have 4 more weeks. The club, you could join any week. I still have 4 more weeks. And the kids really love it. It's live. And like I said, the kids really love it. So we have a 10 o'clock teacher. Then we have one from 11 to 11:30 and 11:30 to 12:30, all Black teachers. And they're really good. They love the kids. The kids love the classes.
That's great. That's great. All right. Well, I'm going to close us out, and I want to thank you all for coming to hear about our book. I think I did put in the title of the book again. It's Homeschooling Black Children in the U.S. Theory, Practice, and Popular Culture. And it's coming soon. Thank you so much. And I cannot believe this is day 4. We have 1 more day. And I look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.